Life of Art. I'm Czaana Saxena, and thank you so much for joining. So today with me, I have an amazing author, Mr. Suffian Hakim.
Suffian
I'm
Hakim,
sorry.
yeah.
Yeah, and he's a
Hey,
Singaporean author. And would you like to talk more about yourself?
yeah, hey, thank you for having me, Sana. Sana, right? I'm
Yeah.
pronouncing it right? Yeah, firstly, thank you for having me. So yeah, I'm Sufyan. I'm 36 this year. Uh, and I've been an author for about the past, 2017, therefore, the past 5 years.
Okay.
I published my first novel 5 years ago, and yeah, now I'm three novels in. I have a few TV shows under my belt as well, and most recently a play.
Wow. What's it called?
The play is called Make Hantus Great Again.
Okay.
We had a short run from the 27th to the 30th of October. Sold out all shows. Yeah. Yeah, it was a supernatural comedy that peppered in elements of politics as well as social issues.
Okay.
Yeah, and yeah, it was my first play ever, and one of the most fun I've had as a professional.
Okay. I'll keep a lookout for more of your plays and books and
Yeah,
things like that.
I hope you do.
So I'm wondering, you started off writing. What made you start writing? And how did you get into it?
I That's a very good question. So I've always been better at writing than some of my peers, than most of my peers, since I was in school. Um, I think I tended to score better for essays, and I think it was a case of just, well, at that time it was just reading more. I was a voracious reader growing up, and I guess that kind of translated to who I was as a writer. But my first huge, I guess, success as a writer was when I was in uh, when I was in polytechnic.
Okay.
So my journey was quite fraught in that I went from secondary school into junior college. I did well for my O levels. Um, I had a single digit L1R5, and then and then in junior college, I discovered the joys of skipping classes. Don't follow my example,
Okay.
but I was kind of trying to explore what it was like to live on the other side. I was such a good student up to that point, and I've always been curious as to why we follow rules, why we work hard, why
The
we abide by
rebellious phase.
exactly rebellious phase, right? So it came to a point where I even skipped a few of my A level papers. Yep. Yeah, I just wanted to I guess, watch my world burn, so to speak.
Okay.
Um, and of course, needless to say, I failed my A levels, and I came to a point where to think about life and what I wanted to do next. So I went to poly, and went back to the last time I felt like I was good. So I went back to the last thing that I felt I was good at, and that was writing.
Yeah.
So yeah, so I started writing in poly. I contributed to school newspapers and all that. But my big break was when I wrote a chapter of Harris Bin Potter in my blog at
Oh
that
yeah.
time during a lecture. I was still rebellious a bit. So I was really bored in a lecture, and I started writing Harris Bin Potter just because I was at a point in my life where I was exploring the kind of the disconnect between the Western popular culture we love and grew up with my own upbringing as a Malay Muslim in Singapore.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was kind of just exploring that disconnect, and because I didn't have the sophistication of thought or language to explore in different ways, I used humor, which was my,
Oh,
you
okay.
know, yeah.
So
So that's how I started.
so you bounced back from failing A levels
Yeah.
to being right. How did that work? Could you tell us more about the process? Because I'm assuming that you would have lost a lot of motivation after that. Like, did
Yeah,
it affect you?
and to fail in Singapore, to fail
Yeah.
when you've gone through an education system like Singapore's, to fail when you've gone to good schools and a good junior college in Singapore, that's something, that can shake you to the core, because and especially I was a good student, so I was doing pretty well for most of my student life up to that point. So it's really weird because it makes you question so many things, about your own worth, about your abilities, your intelligence. And it's also made worse by the fact that most of my peers were doing very well, but I knew I needed to explore this rebellious phase of my life because I didn't want to live my life one dimensionally. I didn't want my life laid out for me, like, okay, exam after exam, study for them, do well, and then, go to the next school and then get your degree and then get a good job and then get married. And then the whole idea of how
Linear.
predictable that is.
Yeah.
Yeah, and how to say it out, that whole idea kind of just, it freaked me out. So I flipped. I had my quarter life crisis, I guess you could call it that. Yeah, and I didn't bounce back immediately from failing my A levels. There was so much to get past. It's not just about, oh, I failed, therefore just study and then get redo it or something and then get right this time, right?
Yeah.
Because I understood that I wanted to kind of break away from this whole your average or typical Singaporean life, right?
Yeah.
I knew I needed to break away from all of that. So I embraced the part of me that caused me to fail my A levels, but I also knew that I had to kind of find my feet again. So I didn't do too well for poly as well. I barely scraped through. My first few jobs I was struggling at them because I didn't get this whole. I was questioning so much about this whole idea of life where we work, we toil away, for for half the day, and then we go home and then rinse and repeat, right? So I needed to get past the psychological part of it.
Yeah. Okay. So
Overall.
don't get me wrong. I think I do not suggest skipping A levels, but I guess you got like a certain sense of motivation from that, or like a realization that you didn't want a very predictable and normal
Exactly.
life. So silver lining, you could.
Yeah, exactly. Silver
Yeah.
lining. Yeah, and it took me a while to realize that, okay, there is a way to balance, these conflicting emotions or thoughts inside my head with the motivation to pursue what I want, go for it, get it, and become who I want to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think the trick was to figure out who I want to be, and I realized. So I was telling you about going back to what I love. I think that's important to figure out what you love, what you are good at, that you love doing. I think once you find that, then everything falls into place.
Yeah. Okay. So what is the process? So you've said you've written 3 novels. So what's the process of writing a novel? Like, you need to write it, publish it. Like, how does that work?
Okay, so my first novel was self-published,
Okay.
meaning I started an online crowdfunding campaign
Okay.
and got people to kind of back the project. So when I wrote Harry's Bin Potter, which is my first novel, and the Stone Philosopher, of course, it's a parody of J.K. Rowling's
Yeah.
Harry series. When I first started writing that, like I told you, it was for my blog. I was just writing my blog. I was just writing, just short chapters, short vignettes, or just short stories within that world. The idea was just to create jokes, where if we were to put Harry Potter in an MOE approved Singaporean school, what shenanigans might come out from that. What jokes can I come out? Can I churn out from that? So initially it was just that. It was just an exercise in that, just creating jokes out of it. Like, instead of using wands, they use statistics. Hogwarts is called Hog Tak Halal Wat, School of Witchcraft and Wizardry. Harris is a parcel tongue in that he could speak to parcels.
Okay.
But he could speak to snakes, right? In the story. So so it was just jokes like that. And one day my friend, a good friend of mine, Guy Vincent, he started a website that kind of like Kickstarter. So it's a crowdfunding platform, but specifically for books.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's a Kickstarter, but specifically for books. And he's like, hey, why don't you turn your stories into a book, and just try it out. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, let's do this. So did that, started turning, what was just entries into my blog into like a proper book. And up to this point, I've only had one creative writing class.
Yeah.
I wasn't trained in creative writing or writing a book. So I did all that on my own. I started writing it, I edited it myself, planned the story myself. Not just that, but eventually we got the crowdfunding campaign was successful. So we got full funding. But now I have this money, but I have to carry out everything on my own, meaning I written and edited it, right? I now need to find a designer to design the cover. I need to find a printer to print the books, a printer who can print books as well, because most printers in Singapore are just, you print a poster, print a bunch of posters rather than, a whole book. I needed to settle logistics on my own, meaning I needed to reach out to retailers and bookstores, as well as distributors. I need to market it as well. Fine, there were the people who supported it, but how about the people who don't know about it, who want to buy it? How do I reach out to them, right? So all of that I did on my own, and it's insane because so I don't come from privilege, meaning I needed to work while I'm doing all this.
Yeah.
So at a point in my life, I was juggling my full-time job along with all the demands of doing a self-published book. Yeah.
So right now, are you a full-time writer or you do it part-time as well?
I do part-time as well. So I am a full-time writer in that I write for a magazine called August Man.
Yeah.
It's a men's lifestyle magazine. But yeah, I do this on the side. So, for example, recently there was the Singapore Writers Festival.
Yeah.
And, so I juggle my time between work as well as going there to speak at panels, to give workshops, that kind of thing. Yeah. Or like, even, for example, now when I'm traveling for holidays, it's usually author related. So like I sometimes get invited to speak at literary festivals overseas.
Yeah.
For example, in 2019, I was the first Singaporean to speak at the Cairo International Literature Festival in Egypt. Yeah, that was so fun. Oh my god, that was so good. Yeah. So now my life is split between my full-time job and my life as an author. Yeah. My family doesn't appreciate it because sometimes when I'm on holidays with them, it's like I'm still working in a way, so I'm writing. Exactly. So just to get back to Harris Bin Potter, the first one, the self-published version, when writing it, I had to juggle writing it with my full-time job. So like, say during lunch breaks, I'm antisocial. My colleagues are eating together, but I have to be somewhere else writing. In the bus on the way to work, I have my laptop open, I'm writing Harris Bin Potter. In the train back home, going home, same thing. As much as I can, I am writing. So for a long while, my brain hasn't been in rest mode.
Would you say that's the biggest challenge as a writer, that you need to juggle so many things, or you need it to?
Yeah. To be fair, some writers in Singapore either have a spouse who works full time, or parents who support him or her, or they come from privilege, so they have all the time. They don't need a job, and they kind of have all the time in the world to just focus on writing a book. Some are in university where it's not too bad. There is some time for them to write a book as well. And this includes those who are fresh out of junior college or polytechnic, so fresh into uni, or those who are doing their masters or PhD when they're older. So for me, because I'm none of those things, I have to juggle my full-time job and my work as an author. So that is truly the biggest challenge. It's
Yeah.
it's insane.
It must
to
have been
just
so demanding. I'm just
It is.
yeah.
It's also demanding on my loved ones. It's I know and I acknowledge this now, now that I'm older. That I've neglected them. I'm sometimes an absent brother or son, or because I'm just trying to do too many things.
Yeah, I guess that's a work-life balance that it's
Exactly.
but it's I mean, okay, I'm still a student, so I probably haven't faced the trouble of the real world yet.
It will. It
But
will come.
it will come. I'm bracing myself. So, what gave you the idea to come up with a Harry Potter parody?
Parody.
Are
Like
you
I
a fan
said,
of Harry
so
Potter?
sorry.
Are you a fan of Harry Potter?
Yes, huge.
Oh.
But when I started writing it in my late 20s, thereabouts. I started writing it in my early 20s, and it kind of just moved on until the crowdfunding campaign started. But when I started writing it, it was like I said, it was to explore the disconnect between the Western popular culture I loved and my own experience in Singapore. And my early works were just around that. It was just really just parodies of popular of famous works of popular culture.
Yeah.
So like I wrote, for example, 3 Shades of Brown, which was a parody of 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh.
A few things. I wrote a parody of Indiana Jones called Jurong Jones. But it was just, it was just it was just me opening my Word document, and then I have a few jokes for this, and then I start writing down, or like I have a storyline that I think would be hilarious, so I started writing down. So that was how it started. That's ultimately it was Harry's Been Potter. It was the Harry Potter parody that really took flight. That I became quite well known for. So this was way back in like 2010, if I'm not wrong.
Okay.
Yeah. So the book eventually got published. The self-published book got out in 2015. So there's a 5 year gap between me first writing it and it eventually becoming a self-published book. Now, of course, Harry's Been Potter is no longer self-published. Epigram Books offered to pick it up for me.
Okay.
Yeah, so they improved it so much. I got a proper editor, a professional editor to step in. We got an artist, a legit artist, illustrator to do illustrations. And it sold. It went way further than I could imagine. Because the self-published version was only available in Singapore, but now it's available throughout Singapore, Malaysia, Indonesia, even Australia and Thailand. Some bookstores.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So what's like the funniest thing that you've written or you've encountered as a writer?
As in my own work or other people's works? Because I'm a huge.
Both.
Okay, because I realize the thing that I realize keeps me fresh as an artist or as a writer is the fact that I'm still a huge fan of other people's works.
Okay.
I think some people once they reach a certain level. So, for example, for me, Harry's Been Potter was on the Straits Times National Bestsellers list for about almost 40 weeks, from November 2020 all the way to like June 2021. So that was my, I realized that the feeling did hit me, but when you hit your goals, when you achieve what you wanted to be or what you wanted to do when you were young, when I was your age, that was my biggest dream, to become a published author, reach the bestsellers list. So then the question becomes, then what, right? Anyway, sorry, it's just not to stray, but the whole idea that that, how do I say this? W-
Or should I like rephrase the question to like which authors or artists would you like look up to or take inspiration from?
right, okay. Yeah, that's better because I was, there's a very huge political minefield if I
yeah.
say the wrong names. um, well, when I was your age, I was reading Terry Pratchett, Douglas Adams, and they were all comedy writers.
Okay.
Yeah, even like the old satire writers like W. Somerset Maugham, I love David Sedaris, who's a comedy writer himself. David Sedaris is the brother of Amy Sedaris, who plays Princess Caroline in BoJack Horseman on Netflix.
Okay.
Yeah, but he himself is a hilarious writer. Anyway, so I've growing up, I have been reading comedic books. So I think which is why my first two novels were leaning that way. My first novels were supernaturally themed comedies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were a fan of comedies for a while.
Yeah. So yeah, exactly, and it flavored a lot of my work. Even when I was like contributing short stories to, short story collections or anthologies, they always tended to veer towards comedy.
Okay.
You know. Yeah, but now that I'm past my mid-30s, Uncle has to write more serious stuff because Uncle is now a more mature man.
Okay.
So yeah.
But okay, you could be mature and also like comedies though.
Fair point, very good point.
Yeah.
But at the same time, also, I want to explore more universal themes. Um, over the past 3-4 years, there have been deaths among people close to me,
Okay.
and it's just in life as you grow older,
Yeah.
that becomes a thing, right? And people close to you might, have died. So there are I and not just that, but I'm starting to think more about the idea of spirituality, the nature of the universe, where we come from, where we're going.
Yeah.
So I'm starting to explore more of that in my more recent writings. Yeah. I will go back to comedy, and my publisher has been demanding that I write Harry's Been Potter book 2, but yeah, I guess I'll do that. But the thing that's foremost on my mind right now
Is
are different things that I want to explore.
yeah, like you can explore different genres as well, right? I mean
Exactly.
that's what it's
Well,
about.
that's the thing. See, so I think as a writer, early on in your career, you have to make the decision. Do you want to be a genre writer, the same way that any of the romance novelists, for example, are? So your entire career is just romance novel,
Yeah.
all the way. Or do you want to be a bit more of a literary writer in that you're writing as an art form, not commercial.
Exactly.
Yeah. So it was the difference between art and commercial. So commercial writers tend to be genre writers. They stick to one genre and follow all the way. Stephen King,
Yeah.
for horror, right? Or do you want to pursue writing for artistic reasons? Meaning, it's the written word and how it's arranged, what emotions it evokes in people,
It's about
and all of
expressing
that.
yourself, right? And you can do that
Exactly.
in many ways.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so last question. What advice would you give to your 13-year-old self?
Ooh, okay. I have so many. My God.
Okay.
Okay. On the top of my head, it's okay to be you. It's okay. When I was 13, I was like, ooh, I want to write like Salman Rushdie. So when I was writing essays, I would like repeat things I read in his books, for example.
Yeah.
And yeah, at 13 it's still okay, but it brings with it a sense of insecurity, like, oh, I don't really know everything that I'm
Yeah.
doing, and that's okay.
You're 13.
That exactly, yeah. That, and never surround yourself with yes people. Okay, always find a friend or a loved one who is who is A, knowledgeable, and B, who loves you enough to tell you when something can be better.
Exactly, yeah, that's so important that
Yeah.
you can't surround yourself with people who are always like who completely agree with you and are always telling you that oh you're
Exactly.
great even if you make a mistake and things like that. Because we tend
Yeah,
to surround ourselves with people who are like us, but they won't call it out. So
that's true. That's how some people don't grow.
exactly.
As somebody who's 36 and having seen that kind of thing, I've seen my friends who surround themselves with yes people, and they're the exact same person they were when they were 13 as they are now.
Cause it's natural, right, to surround yourself with people who make you feel good. So it's
Exactly.
difficult to say that, oh, I want to be friends with someone who's going to disagree with me and is going to point out my flaws.
Yeah, but if you only stick around with people who agree with you, then you never grow.
Exactly. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
Which leads me to my last one, which is as much as you can go out of your comfort zone.
Uh-huh.
Whether it's in terms of the friends you keep or trying new things every day, always try to go out of the comfort zone.
Okay.
You can be fully comfortable when you're older, but you always need to try new things, experience new things. And I mean, yeah, that will make you more open-minded and knowledgeable as a person, but it also makes you a much more fantastic writer.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So, are there any questions that you would like me to ask you? Are there any questions that you would like to answer?
No, I mean, I like the questions you asked. Is there anything you missed out, perhaps, or?
No, okay, so by the way, I don't like have the questions written down, and I think I've asked you.
Hmm.
I've it was nice talking to you about, your journey and things like that. So yeah.
Yeah. Sorry if I got too philosophical or
No,
anything,
it's
but
fine. That's what
yeah.
art's about. It's not it is deep. So,
Okay.
yeah.
All right. By
Okay.
the way, for a 13-year-old, you held this interview really well.
Oh, thank
I
you.
mean, I've done these interviews so many times, and they tended to be with much older people,
Yeah.
and you held your own very well.
Thank
I'm
you.
impressed.
I
Yeah.
appreciate it. Thank you.
Keep doing this.
And also, thank you everyone who's watching this and who's watched this. I hope this was helpful. And he has, Mr. Suffian, has helped you learn something. So, yeah, thank you so much for watching. Have a nice
I hope it
day.
helps.
Bye
See you,
bye.
everyone.
See you.
Bye bye. See you,
Bye.
Zana.